Hi again. I'm really excited. It's actually a really high honor to be able to introduce our next artist and Kirtan leader, not only for myself, but I believe I speak on behalf of all of Kripa. We all find Nina to be extremely inspiring, and we definitely look to her as a source of wisdom and as an elder on this path. I will also say she has some of the best melodies, and she sings with really sincere devotion. She's going to be joined by a group of her family and friends, which she'll introduce, as well as Mark Gorman on bass. And for anyone who doesn't know, he is the best Kirtan bass player probably on the planet. He's played with everyone, Krishna and Nina and Jaital, and you know that when Mark is there, it's going to be a good Kirtan, and that you'll probably want to dance. So Nina Rao, she first learned traditional bhajans from her grandfather in a village in South India when she was 9 years old. Those chants quietly stayed with her until she rediscovered chanting with Krishnas in New York in 1996. For many years, Nina has been Krishnadas's business manager, and she's also accompanied him musically on the road, and she's an incredible kartal player. She's also an incredible Kirtan leader in her own right, and she has released multiple albums, including Antaryami, the Knower of All Hearts, as well as her more recent Anubhav. And she leads regular Kirtan workshops and retreats in her hometown in Brooklyn, New York, as well as around the whole world. If you want more information about her, you can visit ninaraochant.com. She's also the chairwoman of SavingWildTigers.org, which supports conservation of wild tigers and all species in their natural habitat in India. And that's something that she requested that she wants to be sure that we talk about in the Q&A at the end. And I'll just leave you with this quote from her. She says, "What's very important to me on this earthly plane is to not only be good to each other, but also remember and honor our connection to nature, our home, and our temple." So without further ado, it's my proud honor to introduce you to Nina Rao.
Welcome everyone to the Soul Land Music Series. We're really happy to be with you today. I have my whole clan here sharing in the music. This is Uma, my daughter, Devadas, Uma's father, Keshari, Devdas's partner, Brad Stoller, my guy, and my sister Sarina. So we're going to sing a few devotional chants for you today. The first one is called Bhumi Devi. And Bhumi Devi means Mother Earth. Bhumi means earth and includes basically all of nature. Devi means goddess. So this is an invocation to our great mother that is the earth within which we live and of which we are a part. Sarvamangalamangale Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Trayambike Gauri Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute
Shri
I had the good fortune of meeting Ram Das through Krishna Das, and it was soon after he had had the stroke and was giving his first public performance in New York. It was actually also the first event that I planned for Krishna Das, and he basically said, we're bringing Ram Das to New York, so can you organize this? And since then, that's what I've been doing with Krishna Das, as many of you know. And I've also had the good fortune of being with Ram Das every year, almost at least once a year for the last maybe 12, 13 years. I'm not even sure. But since they started the retreats in Maui. And I gave him my first CD, Antaryami, on which there is a track called Vinayaka Always. And Vinayaka is a chant to Ganesh. It is a bhajan that my grandfather taught us, my sisters and I, when we were young. And so if you hear my CD, you'll hear there's a little bit of a recording of my grandfather with us singing with him as children. And then it goes into all of us singing together in the current day. And it was Ram Dass's favorite on the CD. They were listening to it in the car. So I'd like to sing that for you today, along with the family. Ramdas is likely one of the most quotable spiritual guides and teachers that I know. He found a way of explaining complex psychological, emotional, and spiritual issues in a way that we could all understand. One of the most memorable things that he said that I remember all the time, he talks about being here now, as we know, and he also talks about a moment. Ramdas said, "A moment is eternal. A moment is not in time. A moment is not in space. Yet, when we dive into the moment, there is Maharaji, or presence, or the divine." Chanting these sacred names, as we've been singing, is a way to dive into the moment. Maharaji had in his temples in India the Kirtanwalas singing Mahamantra, the great mantra as it's called, although they're all great, all the time. When we went there were Kirtanwalas who were singing for 10, 12 hours a day. So we're going to sing one version for you of the many millions that there are. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Shri 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 Neem Karori Sant Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri 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 Siddhi Mata Ji Ki Jai. Sarva Sanatan Dharma Ki Jai. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Such a pleasure to chant with you. Jai Sitaram.
Hi, everyone, again. We're back, and I'm here with Nina Rao and Mark Gorman. Hi.
How are you doing,
Ramdas?
I'm good. Yeah, it's really good to be here with you both. Why don't we start off? Where are you right now, both of you?
You go, Mr. Gorman, Mr. Beat Bass.
I am at home in Los Angeles.
And me, the set that everybody just saw was actually filmed in my living room in Brooklyn a few days ago. And then I promptly got on a plane. And I'm actually in Los Angeles in my friend Lalita's house, in her beautiful living room with this beautiful altar for us. Yeah.
So that's one of the things with the pandemic is that you guys are actually both right now close to each other, but you're still having to zoom in from your different homes.
We're social distancing by about 3 miles or so.
Is it only 3 miles?
Maybe 4.
Okay, 4. All right, fine. Well, it's going to be different soon enough.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a good lead way into, I imagine, Nina, part of the reason you wanted Mark to be a part of it was because of his incredible bass playing, but I also just know you guys have played together for a really long time. How long have you guys known each other, and how long have you had to be apart with this pandemic?
Honestly, Mark, I don't even remember when I met you. Do you?
I think it was 2005.
Really? Where? Here in LA?
I think it was at the Wadsworth Theater in Brentwood.
That's right. That was the first time. And we were with Krishna Das, right? He was singing, you were playing. That was the first. That's right. Because I remember I was so nervous to play kartals, and you turned around and you were like,
I said, who is this? Who is this behind me rocking it?
And then I thought, oh, okay, I can fit into this band. Right. And I don't know. I have not seen Mark, I think, since we were with Ramdas in Maui, right? In December 2019. That's the last time I saw Mark.
Yep.
In person.
Yep.
Because you were both there at his last December retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were. And I really wanted Mark to be part of this event. And so, he agreed to play bass because all these years we've been together with Krishna Das, and Mark has always supported me and played with me. And when I made my first album, I had, no idea that I would ever have a bass player playing with me. Like, that just seemed completely, drum and maybe kartals. And then to have this fantastic foundation to the chanting, and he came up with all these amazing grooves. And so, and also I love him and I love his family, and we really miss being with each other, So this was our way to kind of come together and be together. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mark, I've always wanted to ask you this question because I've seen you at so many different kirtans. I've seen you with Krishna Das, and I've seen you with Nina, but I've never actually heard you talk about the practice. And I don't even know. Outside of kirtan, for all I know, you could be a strictly death metal guy. I have no idea. But I imagine that there's something that really draws you to it. And so I'm just curious, from your perspective, if you could talk a little about that. And also, how is it different in terms of accompanying kirtan versus maybe accompanying other forms of music?
Great question. I'm not a death metal guy. But I am a rock band person from way back always was in original rock bands. And I'm originally from Philadelphia, and I moved to Los Angeles in about 2002. And I guess everybody has a windy road that leads them to wherever they end up. And I used to say it was an accident that I ended up doing this stuff. Really, I was just looking for a gig, to be honest. And but I guess I found myself really falling in love with this kind of music and the feeling that I would get playing it. And you asked, is there a difference really between this playing this kind of music and being in a rock band? And there are a lot of similarities, but I think the biggest difference that I find is that everybody in the room is part of the band, really. We're up there playing the music, but the responders or the audience, they're doing the response, and so you're really one big band, and that's a huge difference. The power that the energy that you feel when with all people singing together, it's a whole other thing. So I guess that's kind of the answer.
Yeah.
And I'm not standing, I'm sitting on the floor. That's a big difference.
You're good at sitting cross-legged for 3 hours. I'm always impressed.
It's the getting up that's hard.
Oh, right.
Afterwards.
I'm always impressed by how long you can authentically smile for at a kirtan. You always have a smile.
Well, that's the thing. People come to these events, and it's not so much to come see the band, although I think to a certain degree that is the case. But people come to feel good. People come to find themselves. People come to sing. People come to be with other people. And so there's a real positive energy that's in the room, and it's contagious. You feel that, and not many fights like I used to see often in my rock band days.
Sure. And Nina, I guess I'm curious to hear from you. You talked about at the beginning playing kartals with Krishnadas and being nervous, and I've heard you say before that you're not really a musician, which always feels like a very humble statement from you. But I just this sense of, I've always had this sense that for you, this place that you're at now where you're leading kirtan, it's almost like something that happened to you. I mean, it's really just grown out of your own authentic practice. And I'm just curious if you could kind of talk about a little bit of that evolution for you.
It's funny you're asking this question, because I was actually saying to Lalita earlier today when I was getting ready with the lights and everything, is how did I even get here? It still surprises me. And, but I am not a musician in the sense that, I haven't been trained in any kind of music. I certainly never thought that I would ever lead any kind of music. I was just happy to sing in my choir, as a kid. And it did just happen to me. And, I followed the lead that was given to me, in the sense that chanting really became my spiritual practice. After, trying yoga and meditating and things, it's when I reconnected with chanting through Krishnadas is when I realized, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to spend my time doing. I love the feeling of community. As Mark is talking about, when everybody comes together with this intention of doing something that is beneficial to them, whether they may think about it that way or not necessarily, we don't know, or just to have a sense of feeling of connection. And the more I chanted, the more I wanted to chant, and that continues, to this day. My feeling about leading the chanting, it sort of happened by accident, in the sense that we were singing with Krishnadas a lot in the early days when he sang weekly at Jivamukti. And then he started getting invited to sing outside of New York, so he wasn't always there. And so those of us who had gotten close in that satsang decided that, okay, well, we have to sing, this is what we do. So we would have satsang at my house. People would come over and, we would sing once a week and have chai and make dal. And, it kind of grew organically from there. And certainly Krishna Prem was talking about the Hanuman Chalisa when he had that experience of chanting it in Hawaii. When I first heard Krishnadas chanting the Hanuman Chalisa on his first album, I had actually never heard it before, even though I'm from India. It's not really a practice that originated or was well practiced in South of India. It's different now, but in those days that wasn't the case. So I'd heard it for the first time. And it really resonated with me, so much so that I wanted to learn it. And it just kind of came to me. And the first time I went to India, Siddhima asked us to chant it, outside of Maharaji's temple as a practice every day. And so it became so much a core part of my practice that I was chanting it all the time. And then I realized how many people wanted to chant it too. And so then we did the 108 on January 1st. And it just became the thing that I did. And, it was a great shock to me when Krishnadas asked me to sing on Flow of Grace. And he really did have to trick me into singing it because I was so nervous about the whole thing. So, which he did, and the story is in the book. But then, gradually over time, by singing with the satsang at home, and it just evolved into what it is, which is what it is.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, that sense comes through, at least for me, just the sense that you're there and there's a stage and there's all these musicians around, but at the core of it, I mean, you're really just doing your practice. And it's incredible. Yeah, actually, that this whole thing can kind of build around that.
Well, these guys are all so talented. Like, I don't even know how to explain what chords I'm singing. And Mark just figures everything out. And same with the other musicians who play with me. They just create the foundation and the space melodically and rhythmically, and they're just there and so present. So it adds so much. It's so helpful for me. Actually, I love it to play with these guys.
Yeah. The feeling's mutual.
And I guess I'm also curious because you guys have played together for a long time. You've also played together for a long time at Maui on those retreats with Ram Dass. And like Nina, you talked about first meeting Ram Dass right after the stroke. And I'm just thinking about just this long arc of both of your relationship with him. And I'm just curious, how that changed for either of you over the years. And what you can say about that.
Mark, why don't you go?
Well, it's an amazing thing. Just to be with everybody in the most beautiful setting anywhere, and to be playing with great people, and I guess over time we've just gotten closer and closer, and I don't even have to think anymore. I'm playing. I'm just feeling it, and Nina's right next to me. She's my rock, and as time has gone on, it's just gotten deeper and deeper.
When I met Ram Dass, my memory of that very first event that he did at St. John the Divine, he wasn't speaking very much because of the aphasia, And I had just read Be Here Now. I didn't know much about Ram Dass, but I did read about him when I was asked to plan this event. And there was so much said in this book that was incredible to me, that he was able to take all these Eastern philosophies and principles that I had seen in the Indian practice and put it in this format that was so accessible to everybody, including myself. This is what I love about practicing with Ram Dass and Krishna Das and all the Westerners who went back to India and brought back these teachings. And over time, do you remember when we, at the, I think it was the memorial, maybe Sita Ram Das, you were there for Ram Dass's 1 year anniversary. Was that where we were together? I can't remember. I don't remember. We did so many online things, but somebody asked me, you know, what is your, if there was one thing you could say about Ram Dass, like what would that be as a tribute? And for me, every experience I've ever had with Ram Dass over the years in Maui, up until the time he passed, and even now after he's left the body, is that how much was transmitted in his silence. Even after he started speaking a lot more, you know, and he progressively improved. It's a miracle. And still, everything that I felt came through in the silence. And now reading his book, which everybody should read and listen to if you can, Being Ram Dass, I feel like those blessings have been showered again upon us, you know, as we're listening. It's just incredibly beautiful too. And I feel so happy that I had the opportunity to be in that space. So the arc has not been much of an arc other than, you know, we've all got a few more gray hairs. But it's been like a solid through line of being able to count on the depth of his faith and confidence in Maharaji that came through in his teachings and his silence for me. That's how it's been.
That's beautiful. We do have a couple audience questions, but first I want to make sure that I ask you about some of the activism work you're involved in. You know, we were talking before about just Ram Dass's love of nature, and you also have this great love of nature. And for you, it's really tied into a desire to really care for it in a real world way. And so I'm just curious, what you could kind of speak to that.
Well, I won't say very much. I mean, we're all very aware of the global climate situation that we're in. And before those discussions were happening in a mainstream kind of way, I did spend a lot of time in the African bush and also in the jungles of India, because this is what I did for a living. I took people on wildlife trips to see wildlife. And it became very clear to me that here was this treasure of nature that in no way could we even get close to replicating. And the wisdom that's held in nature is untapped to a large degree. And if we don't preserve it, we're going to be sorry for our own sake, you know, never even mind for the sake of all other beings, but just even for us. And one of the cornerstones in the work towards fighting global climate change is the preservation of nature, like the very first step. You know, it's going to be very hard for us to change our consumer demands. It's going to be very hard for us to change our manufacturing means. We can do it, but it's not going to be easy. But the easiest thing to do, the simplest, most straightforward way, is to preserve what we have. You know, hands down, preserve what we had. And so my little corner of the world is saving wild tigers. And by talking about the tiger as the species that we want to save, we're saving tigers not in cages in Texas, but tigers in the wild, in their natural habitat. So the entire ecosystem is preserved. And I say that for every ecosystem around the world, and especially in our country here, where we already have a great starting point, you know. So just connecting with nature is, I think, important for us, for our own spiritual advancement. And can I read you a little bit from Being Ram Dass that Ram Dass says about nature?
Please.
Okay. I just picked out a little couple of things. So he says, on Maui, I don't feel the pull to return to India. There's something of India here on this sacred island. I sense oneness in the wind, the birds, the sky, the waves. Floating on the ocean swell, I begin to dissolve into the oneness with nature, with Maharaji. The clouds, the ocean, the trees, the wind, as I sit looking out at the Pacific, these are my companions. The birds in the treetops, the rains of Maui, how quiet nature is most of the time. The conversations I have with these friends are inner and spiritual. I feel the Hawaiian spirits envelop me. We share this Middle Earth paradise. All these friends, sometimes they are the one, fashioned from love.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I will give the same plug. The book is incredible. I imagine Mangala has dropped a link to it in the comments. But I'll also say that Ramesh Das does an incredible job reading it for anyone that prefers Audible.
100%. That's how I listened to it
Yeah.
too. My first Audible book that I've ever read, heard, listened, and to hear him, he's so connected with the narrative and he's lived through so much of this.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful to hear, and I really recommend. Like you said, yeah, if you can actually listen, it's also very beautiful. And speaking of books, Sita Ramdas, since we didn't get to hear you sing, we know that you have just put out a book of poems. Could you tell us the name of the book? Because I don't think you mentioned it before.
I did mention it earlier, but yeah, it is called From and For God. And it's a book of poetry and also prose. And it's really just the first writings in it were the things I wrote when I was on Maui with Ram Dass. And then after leaving the house, it's a lot of me just kind of wrestling with Ram Dass's teachings and how does it apply to this world. And yeah, so that's the book.
Do you want to read us a couple of lines of something special? I'm sure it's all special, but whatever's coming to your mind.
Yes, I'm also looking at the time. I was told we can go a few minutes over. So what I will do is I will read one short poem, and then I do have one audience question that I want to ask you because it just involves someone trying to relieve their own suffering, and I think that it would be nice to hear what your response is. So I will read this one. This is actually what I wrote when I went back to Maui after Ram Dass had left his body, and there was the memorial, and me and the other caregivers got to be there. And this was kind of inspired from just that milieu of just being there with everyone. And it is called Sitaram. The way Si stretches the lips to a smile, how Ta drops the jaw and the eyebrows raise in delight. We often think of ecstasy as the pinnacle of pleasure, but it's really a fierce melt into horror and bliss. And that's just one moment in the river of sound, Ra. Its alluring current swallows and dissolves. The merciful nature is revealed when despair dawns at the river's end, and aching hearts softened by a low, soothing rumble. Maharaji gave me faith, unveiled unyielding grace. Ram Dass opened the bottomless well of the human heart, and Sitaram provides the perfect form to contain it all. Faith, grace, and love. A sonic murti formed by my own lips, by whose feet I fall with the breast's rising tide. Sitaram, sometimes I think you are a practice, but in truth, you're the reward.
Sitaram.
Okay, so we will close with one final question. This is from someone who asks, how can you release negativity out of your body, mind, after being around negative people?
I think it's important to recognize that negativity exists not only around us, but also within us. And one of the things that I like to read stories of saints. And one of the very important, beautiful saint, her name was Sri Sharada Devi. And she was Sri Ramakrishna's wife and was considered a saint herself later on. And very simple thing that she said was that she said, don't look around to blame others for anything that you might be feeling. Think about what's your part in it. So if you are feeling that there's negativity around you, obviously, and it's too much, try to remove yourself from the situation, as best as you can. But a lot of the time that the negativities that we feel are arising from within ourselves as a reaction to what's happening around. So how can we open ourselves in such a way that we can hold it all with a sense of compassion and understanding, or even just acceptance? It doesn't have to, it's very hard to invoke loving feelings when you're feeling some kind of negativity coming from someone else. But why not just let it be and see what that happens when you can switch just that little thing in your mind, where you might not be reacting to what's going on behind you, around you in such a way. And the truth is that it's very hard to will that to happen on call, just like that. But the more we do practices, the more that space will become more quickly and easily accessible. I really do feel that over time, whatever practice that we might be doing, but all these practices are meant to create that opening in ourselves. Because we live in this world, and you read any of the sacred texts, it's full of balancing the light with the dark, or positive with the negativities. That's our journey. This is our path.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to learn more about the practice of chanting, and specifically maybe wants to incorporate some Nina Rao music into their practice, how can they learn more about you?
Well, it's all there on my website, ninaraochant.com. Thank you for asking.
Yep. And then I was instructed to mention, because I didn't mention earlier, that you are also hosting several of the guest podcasts on the Be Here Now network. So that's another way that people, if they have been inspired or learned from anything that you've said, that they can get more of that. Is there anything else that either you or Mark want to say before you guys take off for the night?
Mark?
Well, I want to thank you, Sitaram Das, and also all of Love Serve Remember for really changing my life. And so in many ways. And I guess that's really all I wanted to say.
I'll just close. I want to just say that hearing you, Sitaram Das, with the guys in Maui was really so inspiring for me to hear you and to feel you and how the practice has come through you. It's really heartening to see that. And I hope that you are able to share more and more of what you are doing. Because I'm also very inspired by the younger generation. I see my daughter and the kids, and now Mark's kids are going to grow up. And they live in a different space, I feel, than I did when I was younger.
For sure.
And also, right?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
then seeing all of you, like Mangala, JR, Kelly, Rachel, all these wonderful people who are working at Love Serve Remember, and including many others. I want to thank Raghu for the work that he's done to really recognize in everyone what they're capable of and how they can contribute in sharing these teachings. And that really has come from him and the incredible board also of Love, Serve, and Remember. So thank you so much for having us. It's really an honor and a pleasure and a joy. And Sitaram.
Jai Sitaram. Thank you both. I'll have you both sign off and then I can make the closing announcements. But thank you again. I mean, this is truly an honor for me to be able to just be in this space with you both, because I've definitely admired you both from afar many times in many kirtans. And so, yeah, really.
Hopefully soon we'll be together.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yep.
Bye, Mark.
Bye, Neen.
Okay. So just a couple of closing announcements for you all. One, just to remind you that the replays of this will be available. So if you found this especially inspiring, you can check back in with it. And we also have some other great performances happening in the Soul Land Music Series. So we will be back in 2 weeks with Lundrell and Jetpack Brandon on Friday, April 16th. You can learn more about the whole series and check out the full lineup and as well as the replays at ramdas.org/music. A couple other announcements. This Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, the Ramdas Fellowship will be hosting a free live stream event with John Lockley. They will be discussing devotion and the healing of hungry ghosts. You can catch that stream on the same channel that you're tuning into tonight. So wherever you're watching this right now, you'll be able to watch that. And if you'd like to learn more about the Ramdas Fellowship and connect with satsang near you, you can visit ramdas.org/fellowship. And I would really recommend that. You know, I think one of the things that came through strongly tonight is just this sense that one of the ways that the spiritual path deepens for us is through community, like true spiritual community and through friendship, you know, on the spiritual path. And these fellowships are set up so that if you're inspired by these teachings, you're inspired by Ram Dass, you're inspired by Neem Karoli Baba, but you don't know that many people around you that might be connected, it's set up to help you get connected to other people on this path so that you can continue to grow with others in community. It's really an incredible thing. You know, locally where I'm at, we have our own Ram Dass Fellowship here in Humboldt County where I live. And it's all over, not just the United States, but the whole world. And lastly, you can visit ramdas.org/events to stay up to date on all the virtual offerings and Love, Serve, Remember Foundation that they've scheduled. And lastly, I want to say that the Love, Serve, Remember Foundation is a nonprofit, and they work really hard to make these teachings widely available to everyone. You know, through these live streams, through the podcast, through just all this incredible stuff that they're doing. You know, even when Ram Dass was living with those December retreats, they would live stream them all so that anyone could participate. And of course, all of that takes resources. And so if you are inspired and you have a little bit of time right now, and if you just want to go and make a donation, that's what continues to make these teachings accessible for others. And so with that, I just truly want to thank you all for taking the time to hang out with me tonight. And I've just been really thrilled to be here. And so, yeah, all my love to you and Jai Siya Ram.